Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the time has finally come. Again, it's been a whole other year. 2020 feels like I've been experiencing 2020 for like 3 years. The beginning of the year felt like forever ago. And from the very beginning of the year, we had some fantastic games coming out. And even now, all the way to the end of the year, all the way to the last possible moment, we have had some fantastic heavy hitters come out as well. So this is honestly the most difficult time I've ever had in compiling an actual Game of the Year list with only 10 games. I'm like, man, only 10? I almost want to have like 20. But we do have the runner-up section where I acknowledge all of the other games that I've played that didn't quite make the list but are still really good that I still highly recommend. So let's just go ahead and get that out of the way early. Let's just do that right now. So I wrote down all of my selections on my phone. I tried to remember as many games as I could that are pretty cool that I played this year. Apologies if I missed a personal favorite of yours. But I did want to shout out these games at least a little bit, so I recommend you guys try out most of these. We got Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, that one's a pretty recent release. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Rescue Team DX. We got Animal Crossing, New Horizon. Now for Animal Crossing, I was fully prepared to put this one on my top 10 list for Game of the Year. I just simply didn't have enough time to play it. I didn't really have a lot of time to get into it. And when it comes to Animal Crossing in general, for me, I don't just like automatically love it. It's a bit of a slow burn for me to get into it. And so, yeah, you haven't really truly lived Animal Crossing until you spend like a whole year with it, just checking in on it every day. And so I feel like it was wrong for me to say, oh, Game of the Year, when we really haven't truly seen everything that the game has to offer. Not really, right? So it's definitely an honorable mention. It's super fun to play. It's a great like family game, a great game for multiplayer and sharing and stuff. So definitely shout outs to that game. Dreams is a pretty big one. Neo 2, One Piece Pirate Warriors 4, the Resident Evil 3 Remake, Trails of Mana, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Now that's another one that could have totally been on my top 10 games of the year. But again, same problem as Animal Crossing, didn't really have time to play it, and it felt weird because it was pretty much identical to the original Nintendo Wii game, to the 3DS game, but it just looks and feels and plays so much better, right? The story-wise is the same, so I don't know, I just felt weird about putting it in there, but had I actually taken the time to play it, I probably would not even hesitate and just be like, yeah, totally, top 3, you know? Valorant, there's another one. Ys Memories of Celceta, the re-release for PS4. Persona 4 Golden on PC, which, you know, it did really well when it came out on Steam. It sort of came out of nowhere. A lot of people loved it, and that is sort of inspiring Sega and Atlus to sort of re-release more games on Steam. So, you know, fingers crossed for Persona 3 re-release, or maybe Persona 4 Arena, the fighting games. I feel like it's pretty significant to have this game come out this year on PC, so I just shout it out real quick. Paper Mario The Origami King, a game that, again, is not like the classic original Paper Mario games, but it's still pretty good in its own way. We also have Pistol Whip on Oculus Quest 2. I just recently got an Oculus Quest. I've been playing a bunch of VR games on it, and it's amazing. I love Pistol Whip. That's probably my favorite game that I've played in VR recently. Except for one. There's one, but we'll get to that one. Fall Guys is another one. Rogue Legacy 2, even though this one is in early access, is still pretty fun. Pretty much the same as Rogue Legacy 1, but, you know, with more stuff on it. Kingdoms of Amalur: Re-Reckoning, Crash Bandicoot 4, Persona 5 Royal. Another one where, like, I don't know if it's different enough to be on the Game of the Year list again. Persona 5 was my Game of the Year a couple of years back, but, you know, pretty safe to say, I love Persona 5, it's fantastic, and this Royal version is like the golden version of Persona 4, is the same game with more stuff on it and newer characters and stuff. And sadly, I really haven't been able to play a whole lot of it. So, I very similar to Xenoblade Chronicles. If I'd probably played it and beat the whole thing, it probably would have been like, yeah, Game of the Year, you know? But shout outs to Persona 5 Royal. It's an amazing game. You guys already know that. You don't need me to tell you that. It was my Game of the Year for like when it came out, 2016, 2017. So, yeah, obviously, go get it. Bug Fables is another really fantastic one for Nintendo Switch and PC. Essentially, if you guys want a Paper Mario game that's very similar to the older ones, then that's it. Get that one. And finally, I have Star Wars Squadron, specifically playing it in VR. It's a surprisingly good virtual reality game. I love the campaign on that one. I love being able to drive around on a, you know, Star Wars spaceship or whatever. I really haven't played that game in regular flat screen mode. It's been VR for me the whole way, and I've loved it. It's been magical. It's awesome. Now, those are all my honorable mentions. I'm pretty sure that there's a ton more that I'm missing out on, but those are the ones off of the top of my head that I could remember that are awesome, that I recommend that you guys check out. And now we got the big boys. Now we got the top 10 games of the year for me, for my own subjective and constantly evolving opinion. You know, I'm the kind of guy that thinks that Undertale is like one of the greatest video games ever made, period. And it made like number 5 on like my game of the year list. And I think like Metal Gear Solid Phantom Pain was number 1 on that year. But obviously after giving the game a bit more time and playing it more times, and I think Undertale totally should have been number 1. But you know, don't take the list too seriously based on where I'm like placing it or whatever. Every single game that I'm mentioning here, even on the honorable mentions or the runner-ups, all of those games are amazing. You should all give all of those games a try if you have the money or the time, or if you know, just want to watch a Let's Play of it or something. Yeah, you should absolutely go for all of these games. This is all super subjective and arbitrary, so like, don't pay it any mind. Just appreciate the shout out, you know? So let's kick it off with number 10. Number 10 is probably one of the most unexpected number 10s that I thought I would ever have. You know, I don't think this is going to be on most people's top 10 list. But I just enjoyed this game so much. I had so much fun both playing it and watching other people play it. It's just a wonderful game. This is the game that I think should have been a launch title for the Nintendo Switch. In the same way that the Wii had Wii Sports, then I think the Nintendo Switch should have definitely have had this game, but it didn't. It came out like a few years after the Switch came out, which is a shame. This game should have absolutely 150% should have been packed in with the Switch when it came out, and I'm talking about Clubhouse Games 51. It is 51 tabletop games and some not so tabletop games. Stuff like chess, stuff like Connect 4 and tanks and table tennis and like foosball and all that kind of stuff. On the surface, when you write it down on paper, it sounds like one of those crappy knockoff like Game Boy Advance games where it's like 1,000 games in one, you know? Those kinds of like super cheap games that are not really worth it for anyone to play. But this one just has that Nintendo quality to it. It has online functionality, so you can play online with other people to play chess or a little baseball and all that stuff. The entire like toy aesthetic to everything is sort of made out of plastic and wood, and the sound effects are so well made. This game probably has one of the best sound effects of any of the recent games that I've played recently, because it really has that super authentic plasticky kind of sound to everything. There's so many card games to play. You got regular poker or Texas Hold'em, Yahtzee, you know, play dice or whatever. This is an amazing game that you can play with friends, with a lot of casual people that maybe are not super hot on video games, but they know what poker is, right? They know what football is. They know what baseball is. Just fun little thing. It's great for kids as well. If you want to play online, you can play online. And it's a lot of super entertaining YouTube content because, as you guys know, I'm a really big Hololive fan, and I saw so many VTubers play this game to the point where like I just had so much fun watching them play that game. And with so many, like 51 games, and there's so many different ways to play them, and such high quality on every single one of them, I just think that this game should have absolutely been a launch title for the Switch instead of 1-2 Switch or whatever that other game was. Yeah, to me, this is the perfect pack-in launch title game that came out like 4 years after the console came out, but it's wonderful. It's really impressive how a game so simple is just a compilation of a ton of, you know, very basic tabletop games would be so much fun and be so enthralling. And that mostly is predicated on just the incredibly high quality that all of these games are presented on. You know, even the voice acting for the tutorials and stuff is just so much fun to listen to. You know, this was made obviously with a lot of love and with a lot of attention to detail and stuff. And yeah, there's just a ton of content for you to get into, and it's like $40. It's not even that expensive for 51 games. And so yeah, I highly recommend this one. I never thought this would ever be in my top 10 list, but it's just, look, I gotta be true to myself. It's super duper fun to play that game. It's literally the Wii Sports for the Nintendo Switch. It's a Wii Sports that wasn't allowed to be a Wii Sports, and it just came out way later. Now, moving on to my number 9 game of the year for 2020. This one might be a nostalgia trip for most of you. For me, it's not really a nostalgia trip. It's practically a brand new game in my eyes. I'm talking about Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remake. So, for a lot of you, you probably grew up with a PlayStation 1 and you ended up playing Tony Hawk 1, Tony Hawk 2. For me, that wasn't the case. I grew up with a PlayStation 2, and so when I was growing up as a kid, I played Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and Pro Skater 4, and then I dipped my toe a little bit into Tony Hawk Underground, Underground 2, all of those PSP titles. I was always a big Tony Hawk fan. I've always loved all of the games. I even give some of the bad ones a bit of a pass, but yeah, 3 and 4 to me is amazing, but everybody swears by Tony Hawk 2 and a little bit of Tony Hawk 1. And so whenever they announced that there would be a remake for 1 and 2, I didn't really see it as 1 and 2. I saw it as like, oh, this is Tony Hawk Pro Skater 6, you know? This is like a wholly, entirely brand new game because I never experienced that game back in the day. So this was a totally new thing for me, totally new, you know, skate parks and all that stuff with all of these brand new characters. I pre-ordered it, so I got like the skeleton kind of skin and whatnot. It's really awesome. I love that it is a massive departure from the train wreck that was Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5, which had like, you know, terrible bugs and microtransactions and really crappy mechanics. They went back to basics, literally. All of the levels are the same as the original, but fully remastered to be in super duper high definition. There's like cool lens flare and shading, and the lighting is awesome. The graphics are awesome. You have Tony Hawk narrating the tutorials and all that stuff. Just relearning and re-remembering all of the tricks and whatnot. It's awesome. It's just an awesome experience. It's really weird to say that this old-ass PlayStation 1 game from like God knows how long ago is like my game of the year for 2020, but given it the facelift that it very much deserved makes all the difference. And also the fact that I went into it completely and entirely blind, right? I am not nostalgic for the originals at all, but now I am, because now I've experienced them in this brand new way, and it's absolutely super duper fun to play. Now, this game is definitely not without its criticisms. I still don't like that the regular campaign has you doing stuff like 2 minutes at a time. I think that's really crappy. They should just let you free roam, or at the very least give you more time, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you know, just as you're starting to feel comfortable with the tricks and gaining some speed and stuff. The game stops and the level ends, right? And then with free play, you can't necessarily do like all the missions and whatnot, so I just feel like there's a lot more that could be done with this game, but even what's in there is really great. And you have a lot of incentives to keep playing regularly because you have like little missions and achievements and money that you can keep getting so that you can buy clothing, buy new board designs, which is my favorite part, just designing all the boards. And obviously having the little stats for all of your characters, getting the tokens where you can allocate all of your points, and having like the perfect character. You can customize your own guy and then give them tricks and all that. It's really great. It very much harkens back to those old PlayStation 2 games with all of that nostalgia from the PlayStation 1 games. It's a really good balance for all of these generations of Tony Hawk fans to just sort of come together and just love skating games all over again. I think this is an absolute triumph. I had an enormous amount of fun, and even though I don't play it as much as I did at launch, I always get that itch to play Tony Hawk, and it is a fantastic, like, gold standard game for you to just kill some time on, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's wonderful. And now let's move on to my number 8 choice for Game of the Year 2020. Now, this one in particular might be a bit of a controversial kind of choice, especially with all of the news that, you know, all of the buzz that's been going around this particular game. It received a lot of criticism and a lot of praise. It's been kind of split 50-50. A lot of people hate this game. A lot of people love this game. I personally love this game, and I'll explain the reason for why I ranked it, you know, as low as I did on my list, and it's not higher, and that is Cyberpunk 2077. You guys know that as soon as that game came out, I've been live streaming the hell out of it for like 5 days straight, almost an entire week straight. And I still, even after this video, I fully intend to continue streaming this game a lot more. And the reason for why this opinion might be controversial is because I've been playing this entire time on a base PS4. Not even a PS4 Pro, not even a PlayStation 5, not even on PC. On possibly the worst possible place, a base PS4. And there's been a lot of buzz around it, like the game got pulled from the PlayStation Network store. A lot of people have been crapping relentlessly on that one version because of the bugs and how it doesn't run in its ideal form, right? And I agree, it absolutely doesn't run in the way that, you know, it could totally do. But that didn't really bother me a whole lot. I went to the release of this game fully expecting for it to run and to bug out in the way that it did, you know? That was just not a surprise for me. It wasn't a disappointment or anything. That's just a consequence of making games that are as a big of a scale as Cyberpunk, right? Where there's so many moving parts and so much stuff going on. You think that after so many Bethesda games, people would just learn their lesson and just learn to just expect that. But I guess with Cyberpunk, it was different. People went from like forgiving everything and just praising Cyberpunk like it's a god to just like relentlessly shitting on it, and like anything that you know CD Projekt Red says is like an awful non-apology excuse, and fuck you forever, never playing it again. It's literally unplayable. So yeah, a total 180 when it comes to general populace opinion. But when it comes to me as an individual, I've been playing the game on a base PS4 for a good long while now, and I freaking love it. Pretty much anything that is not talking about the bugs has been an absolute pleasure for me to experience. The story is really great. The main story, it's fine. It's good, right? It's like a typical sort of mercenary slash heist slash what's the meaning of life kind of thing, you know? Whenever you have these futuristic settings and robot parts and all this stuff, is always like, what does it mean to be human, man? So I saw that coming from a mile away. But all of the side missions, the side content, the racing, the gigs, you know, talking to all of these fixers, trying to destroy Arasaka, experiencing the game with Keanu Reeves at your side, pretty much 24/7, getting to know all of these new characters like Jackie, Judy, Evelyn, you know, Takemura, Wakako, all of these dudes that sort of come and go in the story. They're always talking to you on their phone. The card designs are amazing. The visuals, even on a base PS4, look absolutely incredible. The world feels super alive with a ton of characters walking around, you driving around Night City with the day cycle, the night cycle, driving around on a futuristic car and just walking into one of the many buildings that all of them have something there to do or somebody to talk to. There's like stores and upgrades. You can give yourself like cool mantis blades. The guns look really awesome. The fact that there's many different conditions for the guns, you can craft stuff and level yourself up so that you can essentially make a build of your character to be either super stealthy or really strong or just, you know, kill everybody with a sword. And even using a katana is a viable option, you know, even though most people fight you with guns. The whole like glitchy kind of, you know, defective computer kind of aesthetic. Everything is neon and dark. I just love the atmosphere. The atmosphere is absolutely amazing. It's a really great game for you to just get lost in, right? It's definitely one of those games where you just want to turn the lights off, be in the dark, and just quietly experience this game. Unfortunately, the reason for why I ranked it at number 8 and not on like number 3 or something is mostly because of all of those bugs that everybody keeps complaining about, you know? I played it on a base PS4, so obviously the frame rate isn't perfect. I had many moments where the game crashes on me pretty frequently. Sometimes doors don't open. Sometimes there's weapons floating around in the air. Sometimes when you're calling somebody on the phone, they never hang up. I've had moments where like characters talk over each other when they shouldn't. And I remember one time I tried to summon my car to come pick me up, and it ended up landing on the top of a building and I couldn't reach it. So I was screwed. I had to walk somewhere or like go far away and summon it again, right? And so it's just really weird, silly things like that I consider a part of the experience, in the same way that you play like Skyrim and suffer through those glitches, right? Or play through Fallout and suffer through those glitches. But most of them are funny and silly, and they don't necessarily ruin the experience for me. That didn't really bother me too much. I guess other people were, you know, hoping for a little bit more perfect experience. For me, I just have a much more realistic perspective on it. I knew that all of this was going to happen, but it did not stop me from enjoying the game thoroughly at all. Like, seriously, when the game works, it's fantastic. And obviously, when it glitches out, it's slightly less fantastic, but still pretty great. I'm sure a lot of people are going to find themselves in controversial positions by putting Cyberpunk 2077 as their game of the year. I feel like most people were thinking about putting it on their game of the year, but then they won't because of all of the stuff that's been happening. I'm just going to be true to myself. I played it on PS4. I'm dealing with the cards that I'm dealt. I can't afford a PS5 right now, much less a big PC to run it. I'm dealing with what I got, and I'm still very much loving the game, regardless of the bugs and regardless of the frame drops and everything. It has still been an absolute blast playing through that game, and I have no intentions of stopping. I have no intentions of refunding my game, no matter how many times, the PlayStation Network wants to delist the game or whatever. I'm keeping it, and when I get my PS5, the game's gonna run even better, so yeah, I can't wait to see how this game looks like 4 years down the line after like a million updates and expansions and stuff. If the game is good now, I can't wait to see it in the future. But for now, it is my number 8 choice for Game of the Year. And now my number 7 choice for Game of the Year 2020 is one that I was looking forward to for such a long time. It's a Vanillaware game, and Vanillaware has a near flawless track record of coming out with incredible games that are so different from everyone else, both in storytelling and visuals and animation and music. They are gods among men. They're kind of like Supergiant Games, right? They don't put out games too often, but when they do, it is always a banger. And I am, of course, talking about 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim. And that game is absolutely bonkers, man. I played the demo of that, the Japanese demo for that game, a little bit like over a year ago. That was a long time ago. And I remember enjoying it pretty thoroughly back in the day. Even if it wasn't Japanese, it was super story heavy. Everybody is a fucking time traveler in that game. But yeah, the story is super crazy on the full thing. You have these big, giant robot battles that you kind of have to use your imagination to see. The one big, like, black mark that the game has against it is probably that the robot fights are not really robot fights at all. It's kind of like a big map where you're sort of seeing the effect of the giant robots, a lot of windows, a lot of dialogue boxes and stuff, just doing a lot of commands and just seeing like a little dot attack another little dot, and then you see like a big flashing light and it's like, oh, okay. But, I would have loved it if it was like the actual big robot and like, punching stuff. Unfortunately, that's not really the case. It's more like a strategy-ish kind of game with a super duper story heavy segments. The story segments are, for me, the best part. And I just love that it's 13 characters, 13 Sentinels, just like the title implies, and they all have their own story. They do the impossible, where like all of these characters are special, all of these characters are awesome. You want to follow what everybody does because everybody's a freaking time traveler. Kind of like how in Attack on Titan, everybody's just secretly a Titan. All of these teenagers that are like, 14, 15, they're all Titans, and they all have like this secretly like complex and big, super involved kind of backstory behind them for these like stupid little snot-nosed kids. For 13 Sentinels, it's very similar. It's very similar in that, all of these high school age teenagers, they have such a complex life going on, right? And they can all like, control big giant robots. They all time travel from all of these different places, some of them fall in love, some of them, make enemies, they make friends, and all of this stuff is exactly what you would expect out of a Vanillaware. It's exactly on that same level as like Odin Sphere, as Dragon's Crown, as Muramasa Rebirth. It is very much on that level. For anybody that's a Vanillaware fan and you're looking for kind of, those sorts of games all over again, then yeah, you're not going to be disappointed. It is tried and true Vanillaware with tried and true George Kamitani art and animation. It is breathtaking seeing the giant robots come out and summoning it, and all of this technology that shows up, and like the little robots, and obviously a little bit of fan service because you can't have Vanillaware without, a woman with enormous boobage. And the music, gosh, the music is absolutely wonderful. The combat, as soon as it starts to click with you, you get really invested in it. It's just a wonderful game. It's a wonderful, wonderful game. Is exactly what you expect out of Vanillaware. Almost perfection, right? And I say almost because if they just had like real-time robot combat, then that would be the icing on the cake. But it's not really quite the case, but that doesn't stop it from being an amazing game where you have these 13 stories and they all connect with one another, and it's not even overwhelming. It's not even super confusing because they sort of lock the story after a certain point. It's like, okay, you finished this part of the story with one guy, now you gotta jump over to another character to see their story, and then that unlocks something new with this other person, right? They kind of drip feed you all of these different story bits so that you don't get too confused and too overwhelmed, and as you're jumping from one guy to the other, everything just sort of starts to cross over and connect, and a lot of things start to make a lot more sense. And there's time travel, right? So obviously the storyline is gonna be absolutely bonkers, right? But somehow they make it make sense. They make you care about everybody. It's a blast. It is an absolute blast. Even the combat can be pretty fun when you get used to it. And You know, it's Vanillaware, man. Vanillaware has always been fantastic. I cannot recommend this game more. It definitely deserves a spot in most people's Game of the Year list. I know that it won't be. I know that it'll be almost completely absent from most people's Game of the Year list, but it's gonna be one of those. It's gonna be another Odin Sphere. It's gonna be another Muramasa. It's gonna be another, you know, Grimoire or whatever. It's gonna be one of those games that are like so legendarily awesome that nobody talks about. And now we have the number 6 spot on my Game of the Year list for 2020. Do you guys remember when I was talking about virtual reality games? I was talking about, what was this one game? Star Wars Squadrons, that I was playing a game in VR, and that I absolutely loved it. It was one of my favorites, but there was this one game that I thought it was just a little better. I've been playing a ton of VR games this year, too. This year, for me, was the year of VR, especially after getting, you know, the Oculus Quest 2 and plugging it in right here through my PC. Well, it became both a portable VR headset and a PC VR headset. And I've been doing a lot of crazy stuff with it, side-loading content and downloading actual stuff from the Oculus Store. It's been an absolute blast, but I think the one game that I think is bar none one of the best VR experiences that you can play right now is my number 6 choice right now with Half-Life Alyx. Of course, leave it to Valve, right? Leave it to Half-Life to just come in and just tear everyone a new asshole, right? So we have Alyx from Half-Life 2 coming back, and you play as her through the perspective of VR. You got like these new gravity gloves and all that stuff. It's super immersive, which is strange because one of the most difficult things to do in VR is to like pick up stuff without it sort of taking you out of the experience. That's what with Star Wars is so great, because you like use the Force to like bring something to you, or they always gotta have some gimmick or some mechanic where like, oh, you know, you have magnetic, you know, gloves and you can, you know, attract things to your hand, you know, without you having to actually crouch down and pick something up. But with Half-Life Alyx, you have the gravity gloves and you grab all of this stuff with your gun, or even catch it in the air as you do stuff. You have a regular pistol. You have the same typical Half-Life comedy and witty lines and all that stuff. As always, there's definitely a lot more dialogue in this than a usual Half-Life game, because with Half-Life with Morgan Freeman, obviously the guy doesn't talk. So it's a lot of just sort of quietly going through all of these levels. And with Half-Life Alyx, there is a little bit of that, but there's definitely a lot more like, you know, calling somebody over the phone and just doing witty banter with them for a little bit. And so, yeah, because it's Alyx, and so she definitely talks. The game is a little scary. It's almost like half action game, half horror game, because obviously you have the head crabs, you know, where they stick to your face and they jump out at you and you're like, oh, you know, feeling it in VR is not the same way as seeing it on a normal screen. And of course, with all of the zombie people that are like possessed by the head crabs, they're like walking over towards you and you're like, they're shooting at them and you run out of ammo and you gotta reload and do it, you know, healing yourself with that little thing where like you put your hand in there and it like does stuff. It just feels really awesome. Super duper high quality game. The audio, you know, like the 3D audio and seeing all the little walkers pass by and seeing the combine and all that. It's a classic, tried and true Half-Life game. But with all of this virtual reality stuff in it, you can actually use your hands and do all these different mechanics and look at TV screens, and it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. If you are looking for a big, high-quality VR game that's like not a demo or not a little 10-minute experience, Half-Life Alyx is it, right? You will not go wrong with Half-Life Alyx. The only bad thing is that it's $60, you know, so it's kind of expensive. I would wait for a sale, but if you're looking for some good quality VR stuff, and I've played a ton of VR stuff this year. I've played like Asgard's Wrath, Invader Immortal, and Pistol Whip. I did say, yeah, Pistol Whip was also another one of my favorites. But yeah, there's really nothing like Half-Life Alyx. I think that is a true, honest-to-God, AAA game VR experience, and I'm really hoping that this is just a precursor for something more to come out into the future. But there you go. There was the obligatory. Well, there you have it. There's your fuck, why can't I say obligatory? Well, there you have it. Every year, I always gotta have at least one VR game on my top 10 list. I don't do it on purpose. I just always happen to find really fantastic VR games that end up making it on the list. So there we go. There's the obligatory VR game for this year, Half-Life Alyx, plus a whole bunch more. But now we're going to move on to our number 5 game of the year. And this is another one of those that sort of came out of nowhere. For a lot of people, it might not be, because this game was in early access for a while. Supergiant Games, I'm talking about Hades. Hades took the world by storm. And I remember the one and only time that I did see this game was when it came out. Literally, I was watching a Nintendo Direct. I'm a big Supergiant Games fan. I love Bastion with a passion. I think Transistor is super elegant, really amazing game as well. Pyre was also really interesting. And then we have Hades, their 4th game. And it essentially takes Bastion and just makes it better. It just makes everything better. I think out of all of the games that they have made, this is the best one by far that they have made. There's just so much stuff to talk about with this one. I can make a whole video just about Hades. And I didn't even know that the game existed. I honestly, I feel ashamed as a Supergiant Games fan that I had to wait for a Nintendo Direct to come in and tell me, hey, Supergiant Games Hades available now, only like $20. And it's like, what? Since when? When did they announce this? I just never realized it. I just never realized that they were coming out with a new game. So for me, it was very pleasant for me to, like, on day one, buy a new Supergiant Games game with Hades and download it on my Nintendo Switch and have such an amazing time with it. I think the best possible way for you to play not just this game, but any games, is to play it completely blind, like how I did, Like no trailers, no promotional material, no hype, no early access, none of that. Just go into it completely blind. And I just had an absolutely heavenly, I had a godlike time with it, no pun intended. But yeah, it's the adventures of Zagreus wanting to leave the underworld, get away from his father, Lord Hades. And that's the kind of game where you have to beat it like 9 times for you to get the true ending. I've only beaten the game 1 time, but I've been more than encouraged to keep on going beyond that point, because you keep unlocking weapons, you keep unlocking modifications for your weapons, different achievements. This game has everything. You got fishing, you can even do fishing with this game. You can unlock different rooms that give you stats. The art style is amazing. The voice acting, like literally there isn't a single line of text that comes from a character that is not voice acted. And it's so well performed, well done. All of the typical people that's in here, Logan Cunningham absolutely kills it. And then the guy, Darren Korb, who made the soundtrack for Hades, is absolutely amazing at doing this yet again. And he is also the main voice of Zagreus. That kind of came out of nowhere for me. I wasn't expecting that. And he absolutely annihilates his role as Zagreus, That kind of goes to show that you can be a cool, badass, suave, main character without necessarily having to yell and scream and, he's super soft-spoken for the entire thing. And you can definitely feel all of the different emotions that he's going through with his performance. It's just so amazingly well done. The game is very well written as well, with all of these, Greek gods, that are from the top, on the surface, and then all the gods that are in the underworld, all of the different upgrades that the gods give you, doing this sort of roguelike kind of thing where you're going through all of these rooms and fighting in so many different ways. It's super addicting to go through all of these bosses and beating them a bunch of different ways, get different rewards, the music that goes into the boss battles and stuff, using all of the different weapons, and all of the weapons are so much fun, right? For example, like the gun, I never thought I could do anything useful with the gun, but you get enough upgrades and you get just enough, like you get the exact right kind of upgrades, and that's the weapon that I used to beat the game. The one where I thought I was fully convinced that I would win with like the sword, but no, it was the gun that I ended up winning with. So you never know with this game. And after you beat the game once, they give you like even more harsh challenges for you to overcome. This is the kind of game where you just play over and over and over and over again, and it just never gets boring. It's never boring. There's always somebody telling you something new. There's always a relationship that you can deepen. There's always a brand new way that you can beat certain enemies. There's always a new upgrade that you didn't know about before. Different combinations, different challenges and stuff. It's a ride. And the true ending doesn't even happen until you beat the game 9 times. So like, there's a lot of bang for your buck here. And there's only $20. And yeah, no microtransactions, no like DLC or anything. Classic Supergiant Games. They don't put out a lot of games, so when they do, they're bangers. And now we're moving on to my number 4 game of the year for 2020. Now, this one might be another controversial one. Maybe not as controversial as Cyberpunk, but it might feel like cheating. Some of you might say that I'm cheating with this one because even though this game has been around for years, many years, in fact, this year, 2020, was the time where we finally got this game in an official capacity over here in North America. Technically, for people that are not in the know, people can just bump into this game and be like, oh yeah, it's a new game, and download it and play it for free and enjoy it, right? It's an MMO, and which is really, really fucking rare. I almost never even like name drop MMOs at all. That's another thing. 2020 was the year of MMOs for me. I've been getting into like Elder Scrolls Online. I was getting into Final Fantasy 14. And just a bunch of other ones like Star Wars. I just really delved deep into a lot of MMOs, and I've been having fun with pretty much all of them. But there was one MMO that just won my heart, one that I was already a fan of back in the day, and now I can finally say in an official capacity that this game released here in North America in 2020, and that is Phantasy Star Online 2, baby. I am in love with this game. I was already in love with it, but like actually like putting my hands on it with a controller, downloading it off of Steam for free, and seeing it all in official subtitles in English with all of this stuff. Seeing the base with all these little crossovers and your costumes, and seeing all your friends online defeating all these big monsters with your different classes and the mechanics. That I think I'm a Braver. I think that's my class, where I have essentially a bow and arrow kind of thing, but I also have like a katana and swords and all that shit. It's really amazing. The game runs beautifully, by the way. The character customization is exactly the kind of weeb-ass anime stuff that I like, so I made a really hot girl that, obviously, that, shoots with a bow and arrow and does swords and all that. There's so many missions. Literally, from the moment that you start playing, it is chock full of missions and objectives and daily stuff that you gotta get, and a lot of stuff to you can grind out your levels, get items that give you more levels. There's obviously event, time-sensitive stuff that you can do. The main base always changes to theme it after certain things. It's a blast, honestly, and it is so much more comfortable and easy for you to actually have access to the game officially in English, instead of having to do stuff like opening up a Japanese Nintendo Switch account or a Japanese PlayStation Network account, and then going in there and trying to figure out all the text in English. When it comes to MMOs, it's a little tough to kind of just play it in Japanese, because you really need to understand. The language barrier was the thing to stop me from playing, but I saw that announcement of PSO2 coming out, and I'm like, all right, no more mods, no more fan translations, no more, having to go in there with a Japanese account and not understand anything. It's here, and it's fun, and it's amazing. I feel weird about putting this game a little higher than Hades, but I just feel like with PSO2, there's just so much more history, right? It's like one of those games like Kingdom Hearts 3 or Half-Life 3 or FF7 Remake, all of those games that seem like impossible, that are never gonna come out, right? Or like Shenmue 3 or something, where it's been so many years, where it's like, yeah, just give up hope. It's never gonna come over to America. They're never gonna translate it. It's been so long, they're not gonna do it now, right? And then in that E3 press conference, they fucking come out with that, saying that yes, this is happening, and I could not be more happy. So yes, when that game came out this year officially, I played the ever-loving shit out of it, and whenever I can, I don't really have a lot of time now, but whenever I am able to, I play the ever-loving crap out of it, and there hasn't been a single second in PSO2 that I didn't enjoy. Alright people, we are now down to the final 3 games for Game of the Year, so let's take on number 3. These are the super duper heavy hitters now. These are the ones that I simply, I was never tired of them. I was never bored of them. I love these games with all of my heart. Number 3 is Doom Eternal. The Game Awards didn't give them any awards whatsoever, but fuck it, I'm gonna talk about this game because this is easily one of the best games that id/Bethesda has put out so far. it is a phenomenal experience. It is one of the most awesome action games that I've ever played in a while, and that's really saying something. This is coming from me, a guy that spends a lot of his time modding the original Doom 1 and Doom 2 and Doom 64, and now that I got the Oculus Quest, I've been playing it in virtual reality with like 3D weapons and all that stuff, and modding it with Brutal Doom and Project Brutality with all these really hardcore mods where you're going really fast and all that stuff. I played Doom 2016, and that was a really amazing ride as well. And so with Doom Eternal, they really have a big act to follow, right? And most of that is fan-made kind of stuff, right? They have to find a way to actually attract that kind of fan base and create something new and different and cool that will really attract the attention of those big fans. You know, I'm one of them. I'm one of those super big hardcore Doom fans. Doom is one of my favorite franchises ever. It's like top 5 favorite franchises. They have a fantastic track record. And so with Doom Eternal, I was blown away. I really did not think of a way of, like, after playing Doom 2016, I was like, how can they make this better? Seriously, how can they improve upon this? And they did, by doing what one of the creators was saying, to like aggressively control the fight, right? By changing the mechanics around in a way that it constantly encourages you to always be fighting, always be shooting, always be running around, right? The only way for you to reliably get ammo is by using the chainsaw and killing an enemy with it, right? The best way to get health is also to do the glory kills and all that stuff, right? For a Doom game, ironically, a lot of platforming. A lot of, you know, going through pipes and, you know, climbing a bunch of stuff like it's freaking gym class or something. A lot of double jumping. A lot of going through all of these big obstacle courses and multiple big rooms and arenas full of enemies for you to just annihilate and shoot with all of these different weapons. They didn't do that realistic thing of like, oh, you know, only one big gun and then a pistol. No, you get all weapons and you're carrying all of them. Rocket launchers, plasma rifles, shotguns, super shotguns, chain guns, the BFG 9000, the Unmaker, you know, all of this stuff, the works. So many secrets for you to pick up. The music by Mick Gordon, I think is his name, is phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal. Whenever I go out and I run and I work out, I get that Doom Eternal soundtrack and I just want to run a marathon, you know? It's so, you know, empowering and pumped up and amazing, which sucks where like the Ancient Gods DLC doesn't have him on the music at all, because I guess there were creative differences. There was some drama that went on there, so unfortunately this might be the last time that we hear Mick Gordon doing Doom stuff, which is sad. But what we did get was absolutely incredible. The Super Gorness one, The Only Thing They Fear Is You, the main theme for Doom, which is also the main theme, I guess, for like Doom 2016. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And we're not even done. We're not even finished with Doom Eternal, because we have Ancient Gods Part 1, and then Ancient Gods Part 2 is going to come out as well. And all of those levels were hard as nuts. That's another thing. Really challenging game. Super duper violent. Super hardcore. Right now, with 2020 and the last couple of years, we have been living in a very strange socio-political climate, right? Where everybody is drawing lines in the sand and moving the goalpost constantly over what's okay, what's not okay, what's socially acceptable, what's not socially acceptable, and the whole idea of using your platform for good and all that kind of stuff, right? And a lot of game companies like The Last of Us 2 and a whole bunch of other indie studios and stuff, they take their position as video game developers to create these stories about like mental health and high school kids with depression and all that kind of stuff, and that's all well and good, that's fine, right? But there's just been so much drama, so much trouble, so much cancel culture, so much stuff where you feel like you're walking on eggshells constantly, right? So it's just a very suffocating feeling. And the reason for why I mention this is because when I play Doom Eternal, I have such a relieving feeling. It's such a breath of fresh air. It's so liberating to see a game that simply doesn't give a fuck. You know? A game that, you know, in this day and age, we're talking about like, no, revenge is bad, and oh, no violence, and oh, think about the children, and think about the mental health. And then you have Doom Eternal that's like, you know, it's just that kind of stuff. It's just hilarious. It's hilarious to think that in 2020, a game like that exists, right? And it got no awards, right? That should give it away, you know? That that kind of explains why, right? And it doesn't even curse, right? No shits or fucks or dams or anything like that. It's just a lot of, you know, big ugly demons getting the shit shot out of them, you know, getting killed, getting like the chainsaws, getting their heads cut off, doing those Slayer challenges where you have like the cyber demons and all that stuff. You feel like a god whenever you overcome all of those challenges, right? Even on the lower difficulties, it can be pretty tough, right? And then having that big hub where you have like all of your little toys and albums for you to listen to music. And if you get all of the secrets, all the little floppy disk, and you know the codes and stuff, you can actually play the entirety of Doom 1 and Doom 2 within Doom Eternal. And they didn't have to do that at all, but they did it, so it's a lot of value. You don't even have to spend money on those re-releases for Doom 1 and Doom 2 that cost $5 each, right? You can just play them on Doom Eternal. So it is just an absolutely amazing game. It sucks that in the Game Awards they got absolutely no awards at all. They should have gotten it at the very least for the soundtrack and action game, as opposed to The Last of Us 2. All of the different pieces of armor. I know there's a multiplayer aspect of it, but I honestly, I've barely touched the multiplayer. It's really not as bad as people think it is, but it just doesn't compare to the single player campaign or the DLC expansions that have come out, you know? The only thing that I would have liked would have been an arcade mode, kind of like in the 2016 version, right? An arcade mode for Doom Eternal, that would have been wonderful. You got like master levels and all that. It's the game that keeps on giving. And even after you beat the game once, that's really not enough, because now you have all of this knowledge of the mechanics and all the guns, so you know what your favorites are, and you just kind of have, you know, you're warmed up, right? All your fingers are super trained for you to play this way. And at least for me, it made me like just want to go back. It made me want to go back and like redo all of those levels all over again with all of my weapons in a totally brand new way, with a different strategy on a higher difficulty. I've played that game and have beaten it multiple times, and pretty safe to say that I have yet to get bored of it. It's fantastic. I highly recommend anybody that loves Doom, anybody that loves action games, anybody that loves Twitch shooters that doesn't give a shit. They just want to make a good-ass, well-designed game. Yeah, Doom Eternal is absolutely the game for you. Now, here's where the really tough decisions are starting to come in. I have 2 games left, and I love both of these games with all of my heart. I couldn't really decide which one I wanted to be number 2, which one I wanted to be number 1. Both of these games are absolutely magnificent, so really don't think too hard about one being higher than the other. It honestly doesn't matter. I highly recommend both of these games anyway, but I just had to eventually make a decision. I know I'm splitting hairs at this point, but this is kind of how it ended up looking. My number 2 most favorite game of 2020 has to go to Final Fantasy VII Remake. It is, gosh, such a triumph to see Final Fantasy VII Remake finally come out after so long. I remember back in like 2007, I think, when they were showing like, yeah, the power of the PlayStation 3, man. Look at us making this, you know, brand new remade opening to Final Fantasy VII and whatnot. And everybody freaked out, you know? Everybody just took that as a confirmation that there would be a remake for Final Fantasy VII. And really, that wasn't the case. That was just like a little demo, just a little thing to be like, hey, look at how cool our graphics are, right? But everyone was like, yeah, new remake, right? No, not really. Oh my god, I can't wait for the remake. Dude, listen to me. Oh my god, dude, how good is it gonna look, right? And it's like, yeah, everybody just convinced themselves that there would be a remake, and the meme went on for long enough that eventually Square Enix was like, you know what? Let's just make a remake, but actually do something creative and different with it, right? It's not just the exact same game with prettier graphics. I'm sure there's mods out there that already do that for you, right? Here, they actually take the word remake and they give it multiple meanings, you know? It's not just remake as like, oh, this is a newer product from the old thing. It actually has story significance and all that jazz, right? You play as Cloud, trying to fight Shinra along with Tifa and Barret and Red 13 and Aerith. And then you have Sephiroth, you have President Shinra, you have all of these big iconic things that you remember from the older original Final Fantasy VII, but completely remade, reinterpreted. The music, oh my god, the music is god tier. The way that you hear like Tifa's theme and all of those older songs from the original, just totally reorchestrated and remade. Yeah, I can't stop listening to, you know, the soundtrack, especially for the battle music and how everything sort of transitions depending on whether you're on a fight or not on a fight and stuff like that. Being able to move from one party member to the other, because now this is not a turn-based system. Now it's more like an action game. It's more like Nier Automata or something, where you're just running around and, you know, actually hitting people with button presses and whatnot. And so being able to switch from Cloud to Tifa, from Tifa to Bear, from Bear to Aerith, and being able to equip their stuff and upgrading their weapons and buying new weapons, doing all these side missions that flesh out the world so much more. I know that there's a lot of really hardcore fans of the original FF7 that really hate all of the filler content, and I agree. There's a few parts in here that are definitely feel like filler, like a bunch of like anime episodes that were shoved in between two story arcs or something. Definitely the whole part of the subway, or like on the trains where you're fighting all of these ghosts or whatever. The entire like beginning part of that absolutely feels like filler. There's a lot of like busy work, a lot of stuff that sort of takes time. You know, there's certain segments where like in the original it's like a short little thing, but then in the remake is like stretched out to like, oh, you have to do this one thing like 4 times. And so, yeah, some of it is a little shameless, but at the same time, it's such a tiny thing, you know, in comparison to everything else that is gloriously amazing, you know? Every note that they had to hit, they hit, and they stuck the landing, and they got 10s out of 10s all over the place. I honestly wouldn't have it any other way. As opposed to just recreating the game beat by beat, they actually decided to do something different with it that sort of implies like alternate timelines and certain characters appearing from like spin-offs and whatnot. You have all of these theories that like the Sephiroth that we're seeing in this game might not be the Sephiroth from regular FF7, it might be the one from Advent Children, somehow coming back in time to the original or going to some alternate timeline or whatever. That Aerith is also like kind of different. Just a lot of really interesting but very subtle changes to the story that kind of allows everything to sort of stay the same, but sort of have the freedom to change things as you need to do it, right? And this is only part 1. This is just one little piece out of the rest of the Final Fantasy VII story that they have still yet to tell. That's probably why this was on my number 2. Probably because it's not the full completed thing. This is practically just a trailer, right? Just a teaser of all the stuff that's possible in the future. Graphically, the game is incredible. This is one of the best looking PS4 games that Square Enix has come out with so far. You know, it looks prettier than like Kingdom Hearts 3, right? And that game looks really pretty. So yeah, they've done it again. Square Enix has always been almost like that hallmark of like graphical fidelity, right? Of seeing how fucking amazing something can look. And Final Fantasy VII is definitely one of those big triumphs. I love the music, I love the characters, I love how everything is fleshed out. There's just more. There's just more of everything that I personally wanted to see, which was Midgar. In the original, you only spent like a couple of hours in Midgar. And here is like a full 25-hour experience, and it's all just Midgar. And yeah, there's some parts that frustrated me, but that really didn't stop me from just adoring it all and from potentially maybe playing through it again. It's like watching a really, really good movie, right? And if you like it enough, you'll watch it multiple times. So I'll play this multiple times. But yeah, it goes without saying that with FF7 Remake, it is a wonderful game, 10 out of 10, fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. Whether you're a hardcore fan or somebody that is brand new that is first being introduced to Final Fantasy VII, I recommend this to everybody. Just keep an open mind. Just realize that if you want to relive the original again, then the original is there. You can just play that one again. This is a different thing, and it is all the better for it, in my opinion. And now, finally, we have number 1, my number 1 Game of the Year 2020. If you guys have been following my channel for a while, you guys already know I pretty much gave it away when I did my review of this. I admit that I was maybe jumping the gun a little bit, but yeah, I've, been comparing this game to all of these other games that I've played before, to all of these games on my top 10 list, on the runner-ups. And honestly, this is the game that I've liked and enjoyed and played thoroughly the most out of any other game in this year. And this might be like a weird, like, what? Like Last of Us 2 winning Game of the Year at the Game Awards kind of thing of like, what? Why? But if you're a weeb like me that follows this particular series, then this will probably make sense to you. And I'm talking about The Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel 4. This series has done the unthinkable of actually having two different installments of the game be Game of the Year twice in a row. So last year, it was Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3. That one was my #1 game of the year last year, and I still don't regret it. And now, this year, we had essentially the Avengers Endgame of that series. You know, last year was like, how do you call it, Infinity War, essentially, the setup for this 4th game. And now we got it. We got our Avengers Endgame. We got our big, enormous crossover of all of the big, amazing characters from Trails in the Sky, from Trails from Zero. We got, you know, even small side characters joining up as well alongside the main characters. We have all the Cold Steel characters. We have old Class 7. We have new Class 7. We have all the people from Crossbell, the people from Erebonia, the people from Liberl, the people from, like, even villains from all of the different games. There's so much to catch up with. Literally, you have to play all of the games for you to be able to get it. But this is the final game where you have to fight the big, big bad guy. Everybody has to come together to beat this guy. And it pays off. It absolutely pays off. It's a really great grand finale. There's a lot of stories to wrap up here. There's a lot of character growth that you see, even from like the tiniest, smallest character. You know, this is a very typical thing that happens with Legend of Heroes, right? You're there exploring the world, helping people. The dialogue and the writing is so perfect. It's so amazing. Where, like, it doesn't even matter if you're not doing anything, right? Just hearing the characters talk to one another is such a fantastic thing to see, because everybody is so natural. Everybody's so comfortable in their own body. The voice acting is great. All of the silly little jokes and the banter, and seeing all of these characters sort of grow together is so amazing to see from Cold Steel 1, Cold Steel 2, Cold Steel 3. And then now, when you have new Class 7, all of these new students that at the beginning, I like hated as like these snot-nosed little arrogant brats that were like, you know what, fuck these guys, right? I hated them in Cold Steel 3, but slowly as they start to grow, and as soon as like Instructorine is not there to help them, to give them orders, and they gotta fend for themselves, they start to be humbled and realize, you know, what's at stake and what they gotta do, and they become more responsible, more intelligent, they can fend for themselves, and you really start to love them. As soon as, you know, the game keeps going. The game is a really depressing start, by the way. It very much starts in a very endgame kind of way, where like it begins with a really sad note, but you slowly sort of start to work your way up to better and better and better and better heights. And the game is all better for it. The entire world just opens up for you. In every single location, every single world has a ton of dialogue, a ton of missions, a lot of secret missions that expand on the lore, a lot of characters that you didn't know you'd even see again, even random NPCs that don't matter in the slightest. If you go and you talk to them consistently, they have like their own personal little story arcs, right? Like, oh man, I really like this girl and I want to ask her out. But then time passes, you talk to him again, and it's like, yeah, I asked her out and she said yes, you know? And it's like, oh, you let time pass again, come back, talk to the same guy, and it's like, yeah, she's like my girlfriend now, you know? Just, I love it when there's so much attention to detail to everything, you know? Even from the attack moves, to the voice acting, to the way that the characters look, to all the time that has passed, references to past events, different characters, random NPCs that initially, like in the Crossbell games, you would always see there, but they didn't matter, right? But now in Cold Steel 4, they're like involved in this big mission or whatever. It's just, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, wonderful game. And when I got the review code for me to review it, you know, before the embargo date lifted, I just rushed through that game. I just went as fast as I can. I skipped so much shit in that game that I honestly regretted. I feel like I was doing the game a disservice. And so I went back recently, all the way back to the beginning, to replay that game again and do all of those missions that I didn't do before. And gosh, man, I already loved the game before, and I just adore it now, because it is the culmination, you know, is the tipping point of all of this character development, all of these stories, all of this like implication and lore and books and little games that you play with people. And it is so jam-packed with content, right? As opposed to Final Fantasy VII Remake, that is just a little piece of something that you're gonna get in parts. With Cold Steel 4, it's the full package, right? And not only that, but it's like the one big crossover where all of these games and all of these stories and all of these villains and all of these bosses and stories and lore and everything, it all converges into this one big epic finale where everybody's fighting against this one guy, right? And it's wonderful. It's an absolutely wonderful game. It's a great, like, grand finale for the Cold Steel series, and that'll be the end of that series now. And the biggest part is that it is only the beginning, you know? It pretty much feels like a teaser for, like, more stuff that is going to be happening in the future, right? And if they're going to keep maintaining this level of quality, then I am more than down to play whatever Falcom has got going on, you know? Makers of Ys, makers of Legend of Heroes, and just like always, with a new Legend of Heroes game, they killed it. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is my top 10 games of the year for 2020, including a bunch of runner-ups. A bunch of runner-ups that I even forgot that they came out this year. I was like, did this come out in 2019? No, it was 2020. But yeah, as I said, I don't know if I said this in this video already, but I feel like I've been living in 2020 for like 3 years, you know? This year has gone on super slowly, obviously with like lockdown, and so much like, you know, riots and political stuff and drama and cancel culture. I feel like we have very much reached a very high tipping point of all of these awful things just sort of, you know, reaching people's morale into a brand new low. But when it comes to video games, all of that's been awesome, you know? I feel like with every passing year, games just keep getting better and better and better. And I think is that kind of escapism that we need right now. We kind of need it to give ourselves a bit of comfort, a little bit of a distraction, a little bit of fun in our lives. Especially now, you know, it's December, the year's about to end, and we still have a lot of hype stuff happening, right? Like Sephiroth being in Smash, a brand new Dragon Ball Fighters character coming out for the game and whatnot, so there's still a lot of stuff to look forward to, plus the games that are coming out. We got some brand new consoles, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, so just wait for all those new games that are going to be coming out pretty soon as well. So, yeah, there's a lot to frown about with this year, but there's a lot of good stuff that came out of this year as well, right? So let's not ignore that. I know that times are tough. A lot of people don't have jobs or money, myself included, but hopefully with these videos and with video games in general to bring us together, we can bring about a brand new year with a bigger, brighter, happier tomorrow. Kind of like Cold Steel 4, you know, that's a big, you know, moral of the game, right? Is like, you know, keep your chin up. Everything can seem terrible now, but if you keep fighting and pushing through it, we can bring about a better future for everybody. We can cut our own path, right? So, I'm not gonna give up. I'm gonna try and be positive, so hopefully you don't give up either. So please, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching this overly long video where I just rant and ramble about games. Thank you very much for sticking with me. Thank you very much for watching the live streams. Thank you for your viewership, for your support. I've had some really massive videos come out this year as well, with the Beatles Rock Band video, with frickin' what's this other one? The One Piece videos that came out. Yeah, I've had a pretty big amount of success this year as well, and I hopefully that, you know, it can only go anywhere else but up. And I'm really hoping that everything for everyone, myself included, just improves. Let's stay positive, and let's bring about the year 2021 with a smile, yeah? All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. See you guys next time. Give it a like, subscribe, comment, and I'll catch you next time in 2021. Let's see what the year holds. Hopefully a bunch of good things. Hopefully less virus in it. So, yeah. See ya. Bye.